Well, welcome everybody. Thanks for coming to another Flip Learning 3.0 webinar. I'm your host, John Bergmann, and I am so excited to share with our amazing guests some amazing stuff about kind of a tough issue. When students don't like your class or don't like you. Oh, man, I bet we've all been there. I know how. Boy, I have. Okay, so first off, I wanted to say thanks to our amazing sponsor, Cisco, who provides the software for this, and an amazing group of companies that come around the Flip Learning Global Initiative to do some amazing, amazing work. Well, as we said, this is a part of the Flip Learning 3.0 webinar series. The last year, we learned some really big, important things about flipped learning. I know some of you maybe aren't so, what's flipped learning and what does it have to do with this? Stay tuned. But we've learned that flipped learning is evolving because of three critical factors. Number one, research. Number two, classroom innovation. And number three, technology. And we're going to focus in, and our guest, our amazing guest, is going to talk about how she has innovated her class so that this issue of when students don't like your subject gets solved. Kudos to our amazing presenter. This is Amy Shackleton. Amy has woken up at the crazy hour, I think like 5 in the morning, because she is in Melbourne, Australia. So Amy, thank you for getting up crazy early, short sleep, to be with us all. So Amy, take it away.
For having me, John. So we're talking about what to do when students don't like your subject or don't like you. Often, more and more, we're getting students who arrive at your subject, and at the start of the year, they've already given up on your subject. I teach maths, and students often walk in at the start of the year and they'll say, I hate maths, I don't care about it, I've failed maths every year, I know I'm going to fail this year, I'm not even going to bother trying. And I think more and more this is becoming a problem for schools, particularly as schools become older, students becoming more disengaged with various subjects. Here in Australia, we see it more in the year 8 and year 9 and moving through to year 10 year level. Is that the same for you in the US, John?
You know, I was at a conference yesterday, Amy, and one of the presenters showed the level of engagement of students from 5th grade, as we would say, through their senior year in high school, and there was this drop, significant drop, so that the bottom was at like 10th, 11th grade year, and their engagement level was 33%. It's horrible.
Wow, that's an amazing statistic. Yeah. Thank you.
And I think, Amy, when you talk about this, I mean, you teach math, and like it's a subject where, you know, you're right. Some kids just, they feel like, I don't do math, I give up. You know, I taught chemistry with math. I mean, and people like, I'm never going to be good at this, and I don't like this stuff, and I don't want to take this class. I mean,
yeah, not interested.
So go ahead.
So I guess in the bit of background, so the school that I was at had a particular problem, you know, this problem that we talked about that lots of schools have with disengaged students as they get older. They currently had a year 7 to 9 special ed or inclusion support class for some of those students who were disengaged, who might have had other learning challenges as well. But increasingly, we're finding year 9, year 10 students, teachers, struggling to be able to differentiate for the wide range of levels within their classes. And because attendance for these students becomes inconsistent, it's hard to keep them going through the entire year's worth of curriculum.
So Amy, let's
solve that problem.
Let's turn this over and ask, I mean, your school had some kinds of programs to help students who are disengaged, who really don't like your class, but let's ask the audience. So folks, we're using this tool called Menti.com, so just go to a browser, open up a tab, your phone makes no difference, menti.com, type in that code, it's on the screen, 110531. We're going to use this 3 times, so kind of leave that tab open. And if you could just answer this question, what does your school to help you with unengaged students? So are you getting support from your school on this? We'd love to hear your responses. You know, while they're typing, Amy, at my school, one thing that we did do, I'm not sure it worked that well, but they had pull-out programs for special needs students, but usually they just left it to the teachers to figure this out on their own. And at some levels, I think that's good. but another level, maybe not so much. So, okay, our first person to chime in, unfortunately, very little, which is what I just said. Nothing. Ooh, that's even worse.
Yeah, wow.
Not much. Up to the teacher.
So this particular school I was talking about, they had this half program at year 7 to 9, but then at year 10 there was nothing. They just cut them off at the end of year 9 and threw them back into the normal core classes, which was a bit of a problem as well.
All right, this guy's got, we have the ALL, the Academic Learning Center where the students can go. All right, so some schools are addressing that, but it's not looking very promising with the rest of you all. Probably why you decided to come to this session. Not much. Guidance counselors, psychologists, special education resources. Our school in Italy, extra catch-up if they're falling behind. Tutorial sessions, excellent, great thoughts. Pals from a high school. You know, actually, the last school I was tech director, we had our 8th graders working with some of our 3rd and 4th graders. That was pretty cool. Nothing, blame the teacher. Oh, sad face. Oh, yes, so bad. It depends on why the student is unengaged. Fair enough. Good question, whoever the last person to chime in on. Yeah? Nothing. Not much in Colorado, but the Wyoming, they did different interventions, pull out, computer catch-up. Excellent. All right. They tell us just to do something about it. Not much until their grades start to slip. Yeah, then the parents come and complain, right? Yeah. Co-requisite courses, course clusters. Yeah, that's a good thought. Yeah. Great thoughts. Academic mentors. I found that oftentimes they just make penalization. It will just penalize the kids who get disengaged, and then that makes it almost worse, I think. So keep chiming in. We're going to move forward, and I think you're going to tell us a story. So can you tell us a bit of a story there, Amy?
Yes, I'd like to talk to you about a student of mine named Max. Now, we've all had a Max in our classes, or met a Max sometime in our career, hopefully. Well, not hopefully. But my particular Max had been expelled from 3 schools already when I met him at my school. He was just finishing off the end of year 9 and moving into year 10. He openly admitted he had no knowledge of mathematics past year 7 level because he just hadn't been interested and hadn't paid attention. Inconsistent attendance across his secondary schooling. He also walked in and he said, no chance. I know I'm not going to pass this subject. I'm not even going to try. I haven't passed anything else. I don't think I can even do the normal year 10 curriculum. And he just sat down and looked pretty disengaged with everything that was going on.
Boy, I've had a Max. I so can tell you who Max was. But let's ask you guys. So if you could go back to your Menti meter, should be coming up on the screen here in just a moment. What would happen typically to Max at your school? So if you, for your Max, you know, whoever that is, right? It might be Susie, it might be Alejandro or something like that, right? Whatever it is, what would happen to your Max at your school, folks? Same code, so it should just appear on your screen. Yeah, just drop out, no graduation, go to the dean for a chat. Dropping out, yeah. Yeah, I had lots of kids who were my Maxes. They just go to sleep in class, and then ultimately I'd fail them. That's what I did, unfortunately. Yeah. Recovery program, they fail. In-school suspension, yeah. Dropout. Wheeling and dealing, negotiating with teachers. I remember that kid. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sadly, and then leave. Yeah. Most of the teachers just go ahead. That means he just gets behind, right? Normally nothing depending on how their behavior is. Typically at school, they sat back. District behavior specialist, study hall, push through with little support. Yeah, we've all had a Max. And probably you all have a Max, I should say, right? That's probably the more correct thing to say. Placed in a stronger academic group and be forced to work, he must then show a genuinely weaker student what he learned. Nice. Oh. Unfortunately, I teach in university. Well, I still, you might see some students who still are a Max who are not going to be that engaged. I don't know. I might push back. I've worked with schools, universities. All right, so Amy, let's move on. So we've got some very shared experiences amongst all the people here. It seems to be in the webinar. So, what was the school solution?
Sure. So the school was looking at students like Max, and after the Year 7 to 9 program, what could we do in Year 10 to keep these students or get them more engaged? So the decision was made that they would create a new subject called Learning Support Mathematics at Year 10. I was asked to take this subject. I was briefed by admin that there were very low expectations for the work output of the students who were placed in this class, that I needed to really focus on real-life mathematics because they weren't really capable of much more. They were offered to just do this subject and not do their normal Year 10 level maths, and that we were just, trying to get them through to the end of the year because really we knew they weren't going to go on and do any mathematics in their final 2 years, and it was just kind of like a babysitting job.
So wait a second. They gave you the class for all the kids who hate math. That sounds like the funnest class in the world to teach. Not.
Yeah.
Oh.
I was so excited to hear that I was taking that class for the following year. Yes, definitely.
By the way, I've taught that class, one of the low science class. I've been there. So is that really a solution?
Yeah. So that was the school solution. I guess. Yeah, definitely.
So, but what if you had more time? So talk to us about what we're talking about here now.
So I kind of thought it through, and I thought, how can I actually reach these students? How can I get through to them? And the thing that kept coming up more and more for me was I need some more time. How can I find more time in my day to actually do the things I want to do with these students? So one of the first things I did, if I had more time, I was hoping that I could convince them all one-on-one and sit down and have a chat to them about their learning, convince them to take the core maths class as well as my learning support class, so they had double the amount of face-to-face maths time as the average Year 10 student. And I'd love to just sit down and hear their stories and be able to work one-on-one with these disengaged students who, for whatever reason, weren't doing well in school, and just be able to work with them.
So you theorized that if you had more one-on-one time with your students, some of the disengagement and then I don't care crap about math problems might go away. So what was the ingredient that changed everything and made this classroom a success? I know you're going to tell us about that.
Yeah, so the key ingredient for me was definitely using a flipped learning approach. I was able to work a lot more on my relationships with students. I started out with an in-flip, so students were watching the videos in class, and I was able to, so I could differentiate. I had such a wide range of learners and levels in that one class that I could have some students watching a grade 2 level maths video, or other students watching a Year 9 or Year 10 level video. And while the rest of the class was watching a video or getting some kind of work through the flipped approach, through the in-flip, I could spend some one-on-one time and really get down to working on relationships with students.
So you were able to really develop better relationships and to get the time back and really to differentiate to meet the needs of each learner. What was the feedback of the students?
So students, I've actually got fantastic. Student feedback was phenomenal. Once I started with these videos in the class, they started voluntarily watching them outside of the class. And I found that when I had these conversations and I spoke to students about their learning and about mathematics and just took the time to listen to them, I found that they really did want to learn. And some of the things they said were here about the videos. They love that they can watch them again and again without having to put their hand up and keep asking questions. They'd watch it in class and then re-watch it at home to get even more understanding while they're trying to do their homework. within a few lessons, kids was begging me, can we do more? Can we do this more? Can I watch it at home? Is that okay? And I was like, sure, you can do whatever you like. If it's helping you, of course you can use it. They loved that they could watch the videos anywhere, at school, at home, on the bus. They'd look at the videos before revision, before exam time or test time. I started to have students saying, you know, this is the first time I've actually understood the work, and I've passed a test in my core math class, and I'm so excited. It's actually working.
That's amazing, and I think what happens is the students felt, I think, you know, when you have a struggling student like the class that you taught, they kind of feel stupid, and they're not very good, and so it's easier to act out and, you know, disengage and say, screw it, I don't want to do math. But if they have the support, maybe they can start to have hope that they could learn. So let's get real intensely practical, Amy. I know you've got some suggestions. So flipped was this key to do this, but flipped opened up. You use this big word, relationships. But, you know, I think, I'm going to be honest, I think sometimes teachers are a little afraid of this piece of relationships. I think, I mean, to be honest with you, I was pretty good. I was very good at presenting content to my students. And I think to some degree, I wasn't, you know, the best at relating with my students, because it was easier for me to hide behind my content, behind, you know, chemistry is what I taught, than to relate with students. So how could you help somebody like me who could learn more about relating with kids? What are some thoughts?
Sure. So I'm going to go through my top 4 tips for building relationships. Just going to be really quick, but give you a couple of ideas. So if you end up with all this extra class time, because you're flipping your class, what do you actually do? How can you actually make sure you're working on relationships, one-on-one relationships with your students? So the very first tip is to listen. And I've got there, keep calm and listen closely. A lot of the time with disengaged students, that, you know, they've often got things going on at home or other issues, and you could be the only person who's spoken to them one-on-one all day. So just sitting there and being someone who's listening, maintain eye contact. You can lean forward, smile, and nod your head to show that you're actually listening. If it's appropriate to smile, of course. If they're saying something sad, I wouldn't be smiling. You can paraphrase what they're saying, but it's really just about making them feel heard and being there for them and listening to whatever it is they want to talk about.
So that was number 1, listen. Number 2, genuine interest.
Number 2, while you're listening, show genuine interest in what they're saying to you. Ask them about their day. What kind of interest do they have outside of school? You can use the phrase, tell me more. If they start to give you some information, you know, tell me a bit more about that. You can comment on what they've chosen, their choices for the colours of their books or their pens or pencils or anything that they've brought along. You know, oh, I really like the colour of pen you're using today, something like that. Also important to follow up things. So if a student tells you on Friday, this weekend I'm going away for the weekend with my family, then on Monday you can kind of go, hey, how did that weekend thing go?
Yes, it sounds like just listening, hearing, paying attention. It's building that relationship that matters. Number 3?
Number 3 is about sharing experiences from your life. And of course, I'm not advocating full disclosure, because there are lots of things that you wouldn't want to share with students, but just chatting with them and just saying, you know, if they say I'm going away this weekend, you can maybe share about a weekend that you had with your family recently. Find some shared interests. Find out what football team they support or what sports they play and what they're interested in. Maybe what music or TV shows they're interested in, and just connect one-on-one with them and share a little bit of yourself so they can see that you're just like them.
You know, Amy, I've been reading this book right here called The Pedagogy of Real Talk by Paul Hernandez, and he really talks about that very thing that you just talked about sharing something about your life. So talking about adversity that you've overcome so that they can relate to the adversity that they're overcoming. because a lot of the students that you're talking about who are disengaged have got some adversity. And maybe you can't exactly relate to the specific adversity that they're going through, but adversity is adversity. And as that level of disclosure of yourself, appropriate disclosure, can really open up doors into the lives of the students who need the extra support. And then lastly, you want to talk about, go ahead. Yeah.
Number 4, I'd like to talk about the tip is to provide a safe environment. This was really important for the group I was working with, particularly if you have an entire class of disengaged students or entire class of special needs students. Really important to model appropriate interactions. I actually, in this class, I ended up with a few students on the autism spectrum and needed to make sure that they were catered for, and it's good practice to model appropriate social interactions for them, but good to model it for everyone as well. So I make sure my classes are a no put down zone and a safe zone for people to be able to talk about what they want to talk about.
That's great. Those are some great 4 tips. Let's ask you guys about those tips. Which of those tips do you feel like is going to be the most important to you? And you can see somebody's already voted. They're fast. Keep calm and listen, show genuine interest, share experiences from your life, provide a safe environment. So let's see what happens here. I think we only allow you to pick one choice, so a lot of them, it may be all 4. For me, I'd say it's all 4, but yeah. Well, clearly, one's winning. Just care. Because as you care, I think all the other things sort of fall into place, don't they? You know? Yeah, I think that just makes sense. If you care about your kids, really care, you know, put yourself in their shoes, try to feel what they feel. And it sounds so hard. I know it's a temptation, and I did it, where you blame the kid. Those lazy kids, sometimes I've heard that. I hope I never said that, but I've heard teachers say that. Those kinds of things, those are toxic and shouldn't be shared, I don't think. So I know there's more to the story of Max. Let's return to the Max story. I know you want to tell us about what happened with Max.
Yeah, so Max ended up in that class that we've just been talking about, and a few weeks into the videos, he kind of said to me, you know, I think this is actually working. I'm actually understanding maths, and I actually really like maths. I'm really enjoying this topic. And he spent the whole year 10 year powering through all the work he'd missed in years 8 to 9 and the year 10 work as well. Found a real love for mathematics and went on in subsequent years in year 11 and 12 to voluntarily select advanced mathematics and then ultra advanced mathematics, which is an even higher level of mathematics we have in Australian schools. And he actually graduated last year, and he's now studying mathematics at university. So I'm incredibly proud of what Max has achieved from year 10. And
so you took a remedial math student, and now he's a math major at the university? That is awesome.
Yeah,
wow, that does not happen very often. That's
no, it doesn't
amazing.
happen very often, but he actually puts it down to the flipped learning approach and the time that I spent with him just talking and listening to him about his issues, and he felt like he was able to work in the class.
And that's not just his story too, right? I mean, that's the sort of the penultimate story, but what about the other students in that class?
Yeah, so the other students all had a lot of success as well. So remember at the start, I was told that none of these students would go on to select mathematics at year 11 and 12 level. So all of them went on to select the base level of mathematics. They all felt that they were prepared enough for that level. We had another few students every year who selected to do the advanced mathematics. And students by the end of the year were just amazed at how far they'd come in 1 year and what they were able to achieve. Every student had defied the original expectations, which, to be honest, were pretty low. And like I said before, it was due to flipped learning and the extra time it created for me to work on the relationships with those students.
Well, Amy, that was just amazing to hear what happened with your class and the class that nobody wants to teach. You got to teach it and the success that you had. Now, my guess is that we've got a lot of people out there who've got some questions. So if you would go into the, I believe it's the upper right-hand corner, and there's a button that says Q&A. And we've got about 10 minutes left to interact with Amy and me, if you want to hear me, probably mostly Amy, and to ask us some questions. So first question, Amy. You've covered when students don't like the subject, but we're about to, but there's just no chemistry. Oh, I just lost my question. What if they don't like you?
Yeah, good question. I still think the relationship building and the suggestions for listening and working one-on-one with students would definitely work if they don't like you. It's a lot, I have had students who don't like me before, and it's a lot slower process to try and slowly get them involved. But I really do think the listen and show genuine interest.
You know, one thing I did with the students who didn't like me, and I certainly had students that didn't like me, I was persistent. You know, you kind of picked up on what was going on, and you tried to learn the right way to reach that student. And I totally can remember times where I totally blew it, and I made mistakes too. So, you know, I tried to reach one student by being almost annoying. Some students need to be. I would be sort of persistent at him. I think of one particular kid. And I realized pretty quickly that that didn't work. But then I had a hole to dig out of because I didn't really, it took a while to reach him. So next, number 2, do you think it's possible to get every kid who doesn't like you to eventually like you?
I think that's a really good question. I'd like to say yes. Personally, I have had a lot of success. I think it's about time and it's about relationships. If you've got time to work on those relationships, and if you're prepared to work with students on your relationship with them, then I think it's possible to get a high percentage of them. I'm just thinking of them might be like the 1% student who hates you from a year 10 student, say, who hates you from something you did in year 7, and they're just really not interested in changing. But yeah, I'd like to think most of them you could reach, yeah.
All right, so this is a harder question. So this is from somebody says, I'm the academic technology director and I support teachers. What do you do if you have a teacher that kids really don't like and you want to help them and they're open to flipped learning? So you got this teacher who's interested in flipped learning, but the kids already don't like him or don't like her. How do you help that guy, or gal, whoever's the academic director?
Sure. So generally, if I've got because I work in a similar role, I'm e-learning and innovation leader at my school. If I've got a staff member that students don't like, I'll be going into their classes and team teaching and supporting them and throwing ideas to them as much as I possibly can. So students say, oh, well, that teacher gets on well with this teacher, and maybe they are okay. With the flipped learning side of things, I'd be encouraging them to give flipped learning a try and supporting them with the technology side of things to make sure it happens. And all teachers I've worked with who start flipped learning, the kids just love it so much that they start to enjoy the subject more and start to enjoy the teacher more, and we find that it tends to work really well.
You know, I walked into a classroom. It's a story. I was in Korea visiting some flipped classrooms, and interesting thing, I was told this story, and I met this teacher. I was told this teacher was the teacher that nobody liked. Literally, they said that 70% of his students would fall asleep in his class. And then he flipped his class, and it became a dynamic place of learning. And, you know, I walked into class, I thought, it's pretty good. But then the person who was giving the tour, who'd been at the school, you know, a semester helping the school flip. It was a kind of an e-director from the outside, consultant person. And she says, if you have seen this class before and after, you would just realize that what's happened is it's been a miracle. And, you know, even though I thought the class looked okay compared to what it was, apparently it was like night and day. So Next question I think is pretty interesting. Really good question. I flipped for 5 years now, but often there's a small group of students who are resistant to the concept of flipped learning. How can I get those students to enjoy this method? So the few resistor students, what do you do with them?
So when I start out at the start of the year, I start my flipped classes. I make sure that, so I'm guessing you're talking about students who don't watch the videos or don't do the preparation, or even they might watch videos but they're very negative about it. I make sure that I make my classes really fun and interesting. So the students who've watched the videos can come into class and work on a really exciting activity or prac or something. And students who haven't watched the videos will be sitting in the corner just catching up on videos. I find that works for me and my students really well. They also start to see that everyone else is doing it, and I may as well jump on because that's how it works. And I do find that even the most resistant students, like Max, for example, was just resistant to the entire subject. But students who are resistant to flipped learning, once they get into it and they actually give it a go, they start to realize and they turn around and they just go, you know what, I think this is actually working for me.
Yeah. Last question. This is a good one too. What happens if they don't like you as the result of sharing the class with another teacher? Say you have the class once a week and the other teacher has them for all other classes. I'm a science teacher, for example. So maybe like a job share, I'm guessing. And so that's a great question.
That is a great question. I guess the flipped approach could help with that, but if it's a shared class, you'd need to discuss that with your other teacher. But the flipped approach could mean that you, the teacher who's not there very often, is actually in every class because you're in the video in every class and you're getting more exposure, and students starting to go, yeah, this is the person who I get my information from, and it might give you some more time to work on your relationships with them.
Yeah, best of luck to that teacher. I can imagine how hard that might be. And I can think of reasons where maybe they like the teacher because they're easy and you actually push them to learn, and maybe that's not such a good thing. So that's a tricky question, and knowing what the exact situation might make a difference. Well, I'm looking at the clock, realizing that we are out of time. Amy, I just want to kudos for waking up so early and sharing your expertise, your inspirational story with all of us. So thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, John.
Hey, folks, I want to also just remind you that this is sponsored by the Flipped Learning Global Initiative. We would encourage you to check out more of our resources at flglobal.org. We especially would encourage you to join our community. So simply go to community.flglobal.org/community, community on both sides, so that you can learn more about the resources. We have a community of people talking about how to engage students and learning how to make them move to active learning. So we encourage you to go to learn more at flglobal.org. Thanks for being here. Stay tuned for our next webinar, and we will be sending that out via email to all of you and on social media and whatnot. So thanks for being here. Have a great day.